Hi, I'm John Sullivan with 401k Specialist, and you're listening to the 401k Specialist podcast. This week, we're very excited to be joined by Ted Benna, also known as the father of the 401k. Way back in the 1970s, Ted was smart enough to figure out that a certain section of the IRS code allowed for retirement savings, so he developed what today is the 401k. Ted is here to discuss what he thinks of modern day DC plans, state run IRAs, what he feels could be done better, and what the industry is getting right. Ted, you're on record as being less than enthusiastic about state plans. Why do they fall short in your estimation?
There are a couple of concerns I have, John, and I've focused primarily on the Oregon one because it's the one that's pioneered and the farthest along. And the first issue I have with it is the fact that the fee is 1%, and for investing in an IRA, that's more than 10 times higher than what it needs to be. The other issue I have with it, significant issue, is it's limited to a Roth IRA, and Roth IRAs are okay for some people, but I've written article entitled "Roth or Not to Roth," and there are a lot of reasons not to Roth, for many people, and
Right.
that's an issue, and then the other, probably the last is the investment menu is quite limited. It's limited to target date maturity funds, and that's it.
But do you think it serves a purpose? I mean, do you think it's at least spurring the industry to go after better coverage rates, to get better participation in all the things that we hear so much about?
I don't think it's doing that a lot, John, and the reason for it is, this. Let's make it clear here. The market, I'm talking about, that's primary focus, or there are tons of small employers where clearly 401k is not the right plan. There are better alternatives. And, I'm talking about businesses where the owners are generally earning $100,000 or less. And, there are lots of them. I mean, there are a lot of small businesses that are, earning 50, 75, $80,000 or so.
Right.
And, so that market, the financial service industry has absolutely no interest in. And just, to throw in a little example here, over the weekend, I got an inbound off the what I've been doing, relative to the competing with the Oregon plan from a Montessori school. And so I've worked with them, over this issue. And, the head of that little school has been really enthused about the alternatives that are available, and acknowledged the fact that, there's no support from the investment community, for her situation. 17 employees, average wage level of 17.50 an hour,
Right. Right.
not enough money, for them to be interested.
Understood. So, Ted, the 401k seems to be increasingly under attack at a time when coverage, participation rates, balances, replacement incomes, they're all gaining serious traction. In other words, it's working. So, why the negativity? And do you think it will continue?
It runs hot and cold, John. Always has. And 401k is certainly not a perfect answer. And those who want to throw it out, well, let me just make a real direct comment. Ronald Reagan, with his tax reform original version of that, would have totally eliminated 401k.
Right.
And so I throw out the question, which my youngest son has said, to ask, where would we be today without 401k? What if that effort had succeeded? It's pretty horrible to think about that fact. And so despite, the issues with 401k, for most people who are in the workplace to have that opportunity, they need to be taking advantage of it. And, I've learned over the years, John, the biggest benefit that 401k offers to average employees is helping convert them from spenders to savers, by making saving the first priority via payroll deduction. So as a result of that, I definitely support the initiative of Oregon, and other states to mandate that small employers have to offer some type of program, to help employees save for their retirement.
Understood. So, as the man who first identified and developed the 401k, I want to put you on the spot a little bit here, Ted. Where do they fall short, though? What could be improved?
The probably three things that stand out to me, John. The first one is I would require all employers who offer 401k to offer auto enrollment. That's the arrangement whereby employees are automatically enrolled and have to pull the plug, not to be contributing to plan. Next part of that is to have automatic annual increases in the amount that they're contributing, that also would be required. And then the next major concern is the fact that too much of the money that is saved in these programs leaks out when employees change job. And I'd like to see a lid put on that when employees change jobs, the money has to be preserved in retirement accounts rather than potentially being cashed out and used for many other purposes.
Understood. 401k critics like to refer to the golden age of company pensions, but as you've noted, it wasn't really all that golden. What were some of the deficiencies of the defined benefit era?
You have to start with the fact that from the very beginning, it was legally possible at the federal level with Social Security, at the state, local levels, and then with private employer plans to set these plans up and to promise benefits that were not funded. That's been a deficiency from the very beginning, and it continues to be, of course, a very major problem with these plans. So, there's a perception uh, and it certainly was promoted by Barack Obama and Sanders during the last election, that we need to revert back, to these plans that everybody had, where they're guaranteed an income for life. And the reality is that participants in these plans have as much investment risk as participants in 401ks. They just don't know it. They're not aware of that fact.
So, what you mentioned auto enrollment, but what other innovation really excites you, Ted, that you're seeing that is really making you say, wow, this could really change things?
The only other is the initiative to require small employers to offer some type of program. I've owned small businesses and run them, and the pushback from trade groups representing them, saying, "Hey, it's shouldn't put that burden, shouldn't require these employers to offer something." It's not that big a deal. To offer a payroll deduction plan that doesn't require any employer contributions isn't that complex, and so that's the other thing. The multiple employer plans probably is something you're looking for me to comment on, and that's getting play at potentially significantly changing 401k market, and it may. I have reservations about that. My concern is whether it will really drive down costs to participants or primarily increase profits, to the provider community. I'm not sure which it'll do.
So, Ted, you mentioned that you're taking on Oregon and Oregon's plan. What is it exactly that you're doing, if you could elaborate a little bit, and why is it better?
I have a free guide that's available on my website, and what it does is it explains alternatives to the Oregon 401k program. And I've been working on this for a number of years now, John, and we actually have four different designs that are IRA based alternatives for 401. I'm sorry, for small employers. They're alternatives to Oregon Saves and also alternatives to 401k. And these alternatives provide uh, for small employers some very attractive alternatives. There are no fees. My guide, the free guide, doesn't cost anything to find out what these alternatives are. And then if you want to move ahead with implementing one of these alternatives, I have uh, 3 other guides that can be purchased for $49.99 that tells you exactly how to do that. And that's what this little Montessori school in Oregon that I mentioned earlier is doing right now. It's moving ahead, with guide number 2, model number 2 to go ahead and implement that type of plan.
What is the website to get the free guide?
www.benna401k.com.
Benna401k.com. Great. Just one last question that, I'm sure you get this all the time, but we've got to end this way. Did you ever think when you first developed the 401k that it would turn into what it has?
I knew it was going to be big, and I didn't have to be that smart, frankly, to come up with that conclusion. And the reason is the fact that most large employers at the time already had what were known as thrift and savings plans, where employees were putting in their money after tax. And I quickly came to the conclusion that once they began to find out that this was a way where they would have the opportunity to do that pre-tax instead of after tax, that they would jump on it. And at the time, John, the marginal tax rate at the top was in the 70% range. So
Right.
if you were executive in a senior company putting $20,000-$30,000 a year in after tax to one of these plans, you could get pretty excited to converting that to pre-tax.
Yep. Yep. Understood. Ted Benna, this is fantastic. Exactly what we needed. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.